Hello, welcome to a video lecture that I've put together for you to introduce you to our third assignment, writing a review, or as the title of our chapter indicates, Two Thumbs Up. Two Thumbs Up comes to us from Siskel and Ebert, two Chicago area movie reviewers who are known for giving either two thumbs up, two thumbs down, or one thumb up, one thumb down in their reviews. And they had a television show. So, okay. So this assignment asks, as you might have guessed, for you to write a review. So here's a copy of the assignment sheet, which I've posted on our D2L site. And you can see the basic task here. Choose a subject that you're interested in evaluating. Such a subject could include a movie, television show, concert, a play, a book, a restaurant, a website devoted to a particular topic. The list is pretty much endless. So I do advise you that one-time events excuse me, can make for good evaluations, but you'll have to take good notes on them. So subjects that you can return to again and again oftentimes make some better topics for this. And for instance, restaurant reviews, restaurant critics, work for newspapers and such, they typically visit a restaurant 3 times before they write a review of it. So maybe different times of day or different days of the week. And so you have to be careful about some one-time events. Also, in terms of one-time events, I know that sometimes things pop into people's heads right away. They think, oh, I'm going to write about that concert I went to last month, or that music festival I went to last summer. So, but this assignment, kind of very much like the profile assignment, has very little to do with memories and much more to do with fresh observations. So, so think of something that you haven't experienced yet necessarily, and go out and look at it with a fresh eye and take notes on it in that sense. So, okay. And find out all you can about your subject. Develop a list of criteria that you think are relevant for evaluating your particular topic. So that's one of the things we're going to work on through this assignment is down here a little bit lower on the page, I talk about the importance of generalities and specifics and the importance of genre. So genre is figuring out what type of thing are we looking at. So we can talk about a movie, a television show, a concert, a play, etc. But in terms of movies, is it a Western? Is it a romantic comedy? Is it a drama? Is it action adventure? Is it a horror movie? So the genre helps us to determine many of the criteria that we'll be using for evaluation. So in terms of a restaurant, is it, an Italian restaurant? Is it a pizza place? Is it a Mexican restaurant? Is it a French restaurant? Whatever. But even that, we might have to break it down even further. So when we think about Mexican restaurants, we might think Taco Bell, maybe on the bottom rung of the ladder. And then maybe some other things like On the Border and Don Pablo's and stuff as maybe, higher up, maybe pretty standard types of sit-down Mexican restaurants. But you can also find very fine dining Mexican restaurants. So we have to figure out exactly what it is that we're looking at. That'll help us to determine our criteria for evaluation. So write an essay evaluating your topic using the criteria you've established. In your essay, you will summarize, describe your topic, indicate your criteria, and then apply your criteria. So I'm going to show you that here in a second. Finally, you'll summarize your evaluation. Ignore this part. I meant to take this out. I said in doing so, you should also use at least one other source to help support your evaluation. We're actually not supposed to be dealing with citing sources in first-year writing, so I meant to take that out. I do say you don't need to have a specific criteria section for your essay, but through your evaluation, it should become clear to your reader what your criteria are. So they should be mentioned in your essay. So, okay, we're going to look at the structure here in a bit. Finding a topic can be almost anything. So let's start this process. Look around. What do you see going on? What might you like to write an evaluation for, a review? Also think about the ways that you use reviews. So frequently I'll have students kind of search for reviews, typically on their phones, because you've got your phone with you all the time. And frequently that's one of the ways that we encounter reviews. So we're out with friends, everyone says they're hungry, where should we go? I don't know. And so you pull out your phone and start looking for restaurants nearby, and then you start looking at reviews of those restaurants. And sometimes we use predictable sources like Yelp for restaurant reviews. We do see a lot of reviews that are kind of written with people's thumbs, because while you're out with your phone and you've had some type of experience, you might want to write a review. So I think more of us are consumers of reviews than producers of reviews, but I have had a considerable number of students in the past say that they've written reviews, and so it's not just a one-way type of document. And encouraging you, to engage in writing reviews, and maybe you'll continue this beyond this class. So, okay, so we're going to talk more about genre and generalities and specifics. Your audience, consider your audience to be college-level readers, and basic features of an evaluation essay. Makes a judgment, tries to convince readers that the judgment is reasonable. Judgment is based on standards appropriate to its subject. Those are our criteria. Strives to show that it fully understands the subject. We want to enhance our ethos as writers, that we have experienced this, and so we have some subjective authority here that we're using. Gives reasons for its judgment. So not only do we have criteria and say that something is good or bad, but we back it up with supporting evidence. So, okay, and there's the evidence and examples. Typical problems, we'll talk about this as we go along, but unsupported value judgments, essay falls back on advertising or PR language, comparison or contrast is not developed. So this statement about comparison and contrast is important, because frequently that's how we evaluate things. We tend to compare it against something else. So if you're going to write about Saxby's, you're probably going to wind up comparing it to Starbucks. So even if you didn't, you might kind of compare it to a prototypically perfect version of coffee establishment in your mind. So there's always this kind of compare and contrast going on, even if we don't do a direct compare and contrast with something else. But that can be handy. That's a way of kind of explaining your evaluation. So I've also seen this occasionally turn into narrative writing, that they wind up writing about going to dinner with their friends at the Cheesecake Factory. And so it becomes a personal narrative essay again, and not really a review essay. Kind of breaks down on a lot of structure sometimes. Another thing I've seen, especially with like movie reviews, TV shows, long, shows that are not just individual episode, but the entire season of something, that people will get caught up in describing the plot, and that takes over their essay. And then finally, right before the conclusion, they finally add some evaluation analysis there, and then they wrap it up. So we want to avoid some of these problems and make it a good, well-structured and well-balanced essay. So stipulations, 4 to 6 pages in length, and ignore the part about the outside source and MLA documentation. I forgot to take those out. So let me talk a little bit more about making an evaluation, writing a review, and let me go back to my slides for that. Okay, on this slide, I'm talking about things that are analogous or synonymous to reviews. So, evaluations, analyses, this academic word that we sometimes use, critique. And so, under reviews, I've got different types of reviews that you're probably well familiar with: movie reviews, book reviews, restaurant, product reviews. So, especially if you do a lot of shopping online for things, Amazon and such, we tend to read those reviews that are right there at the point of purchase, on the internet. And we always want to get things that are highly rated, a good number of reviews. I don't trust things that only have like 2 or 3 reviews. I also, for some reason, tend to look at the 1-star reviews to kind of figure out, what are the potential downsides of this product. And so we see those types of reviews across the internet on any type of shopping site. They're typically ways that users can leave reviews. And then the next big category I've got here is evaluations. So evaluation analysis is kind of the body of the document that we're creating. So I'll think of the evaluation and analysis section. But we also refer to different things as by that simple name, evaluations. And the one I'm thinking about is work-related. That it's time for your evaluation. So sometimes we call them performance reviews. So very similar, and I'm going to show you that structurally they're also very similar. Analyses I tend to think of in a more academic vein: critical analysis, rhetorical analysis, literary analysis. And then we have these things called critiques, and they do stick very closely to the structure that I'm going to talk about, and so that's why they're kind of formal in nature. Okay, so before you go crazy wondering what this is on this slide, this is kind of a schematic, a typical format or structure of a review and all of those other types of documents that I was talking about. So we tend to have an introduction that, without getting too much into the overall evaluation, that it introduces us to the topic and what's under review, and kind of hints at the overall evaluation. So maybe I'm talking about something about Mexican restaurants. I'm always talking about Mexican restaurants, but Mexican restaurants in Westchester, and what a great cuisine it is that people like. And without giving away my evaluation too much, I might say, and there's a new game in town with Jose's Mexican restaurant or something. So I try to find a way to hook the reader and get them in, let them know what we're talking about, and give them a little teaser about the overall evaluation without actually giving it away. So that's why I say it has a thesis of sorts. After that, we tend to have a background or bridge paragraph. So this is a transitional paragraph between the introduction and the body, and the main part of the body is the evaluation and analysis. And for a movie review, book review, something that has a story in it, we might get this type of summary, plot summary, and overview of it. I also use this funny academic word, synopsis of things. If it's a restaurant review, maybe we're giving a description of it. So when you first walk in, blah, 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 and keep it to a paragraph as much as possible. This is one section that can sometimes get away from people and take over the entire essay. So, we're trying to be fairly objective in this part. We've hooked the reader and got them in, but we kind of want to make sure everyone's on the same page here before we jump in to the evaluation. So in classical rhetoric, for what it's worth, they call this narratio. And so the first part, the intro, was exordium. So get the reader involved, and then narratio, kind of back up and make sure everyone's on the same page, and then getting into the argument after that. So after the background and overview section, typically we might have a statement of criteria. This is something that we find in a formal critique, but in a lot of reviews that you're accustomed to, movie reviews, book reviews, restaurant reviews, you won't see those statement of criteria because they're kind of generally assumed. But rather than being in a separate section by themselves, they're oftentimes revealed during the next section, which is the evaluation and analysis section. So we can take whatever criterion we're dealing with. Criterion is singular, criteria is plural, and we can take that criterion and make it part of the topic sentence of a paragraph in the evaluation and analysis section. So I might say something about the service at this restaurant is one of my favorite things about it. So, and then I go on and I talk about the service a bit more in depth, in detail, during that paragraph, and give an example of it. So we need some concrete, hard, supporting evidence to back up our topic sentence, which is basically a statement of a single criterion. And so we do that throughout the evaluation and analysis section. During this section, you use as many paragraphs as you need. So you see in my little schematic there, we've got a paragraph and then ... another paragraph. So as many paragraphs as you need in there. You're applying your criteria, typically through your topic sentences, and providing supporting evidence with specific examples in the body of your paragraphs. And we just do that over and over again. And then toward the end, typically we'll have some recommendations for improvement. So this was a good movie, but it would have been even better if, or, certain things I liked about the movie, but let me talk about the things I didn't like about the movie. And then the critic goes on sometimes at length at that point. Or we're talking about the different types of reviews. Maybe you're in a performance review, an evaluation on the job that your boss, so maybe in the background bridge section, maybe or in the criteria, those are the qualifications of your job. And then the recommendations for improvement, while this employee did well during this evaluation period, we do have some things that we want them to work on for the next evaluation period. So again, we see this structure is very typical in all these different types of documents. So, and then the conclusion wraps things up, reaffirms your evaluation, and that's about it. So, okay. So that's the typical format and structure. Try to refer back to it or commit this to memory, or maybe I'll upload these slides as PDFs so that you can refer back to them. So moving on, I wanted to show you some examples from previous semesters. Just a couple of examples real quick. One of the things you're going to notice about these examples is there's a lot of extra stuff. It's not just a review, but we're trying to make this a multimodal document. So one of the first obvious things that we're going to do is put images in it. And so with a restaurant review, we typically have again, going back to some filmmaking terms, an establishment shot, maybe the outside of the restaurant, or maybe the cover of the menu or something, the entrance, whatever. And then we also have a lot of pictures of food within the review. In a movie review, we oftentimes see scenes from the movie. In a software review or a game review, we see scenes from that as well. So, so what we're trying to do with this is we're going to make this document look like you could just slap it up there on the web. So, and we're going to do all of this in Microsoft Word and move things around, and then save it as a PDF. And then when you look at a PDF document in a PDF viewer like Adobe Acrobat, you don't see the edges of the page. You see from one edge to the other. And so it's going to look like a web page. So let's take a look. Okay, so the first example I have for you, an excellent example. This is from a video game review site, but it's not actually on this review site. So the student did some screen capturing, which I'll show you how to do, to get basically the banner at the top and the navigation bar. And then we see some other features on a web page. So a headline and then a subheading. We see use of color. We see the actual label, review, on there, and we see that quite often. We also see, some made-up numbers, 132,000 views. It's available for PC and Xbox One. So we're going to be examining these review sites that I'm going to share with you and looking for some of the conventions of these websites, just like the structure has some conventions that we need to kind of incorporate and respond to. So do these websites. So this is a review of a video game called Cuphead, and it kind of uses 1930s style, what they call rubber hose animation in it. And so we can see this, imagining it on the web. It looks like it's just ready to go. And heavy use of visuals, because people on the web are into being visually stimulated. So scenes from the game. We also see over here in the margin a rated E for everyone, some specifics. We also see a rating in the margin. So frequently, there's something like this on a website that makes it easy for us to find the rating right away if we don't want to read all the text. So we've got that going on, and that's pretty much it. So I'm going to encourage you guys to start studying these review sites and look for things at the beginning and at the end and in the margins, and I'll show you how to make it come together in Word, and then we'll save it as a PDF, and it'll look like it's out there on the web. So there's one example. Let's take a look at another. Okay, in this example, another video game, Super Mario Run. And again, we have a headline and a subheading, and we have a byline, the date, also good use of color. So the formatting looks like what we'd find on a website. Use a couple of screen grabs from the actual website and put them in your document to make it look like a banner and a navigation bar, and some left-hand navigation, use of an image in the margin on this side. And so as we get into it, here's our review. Use of bulleted lists, something that we oftentimes see on the web, makes for ease of reading, speedier reading. Also use of subheadings throughout. So, and then we're seeing things happening left and right on this, and images tied in with it. And the verdict overall. So we didn't have the separate thing that you could go and find, 4 out of 5 stars or something like that, 81% like the other one. But this is a really good example, I think. So we're going to write a review, and then we're going to turn it into an online review. So let me go back to my slides. Actually, let me go back to the assignment sheet. So that's the assignment, and start thinking about possible topics, what you might want to write a review on. Think about some things where maybe you're kind of an expert in some regard. So maybe you got some hobbies or interests or something like that, and that would help you to make a kind of an authoritative product review or something. So kind of monitor your activities and see what sort of things you get up to and what within that realm could make a good topic for a review. Okay, so that's all I've got, and thank you for listening, and I'll be talking to you soon.